The following dramatic accounts are claimed to be based on actual emotional events. The names and locations have been altered for privacy purposes. Nevertheless, you be the judge. And now, let's begin with our story.
I led a sheltered childhood, deprived of much freedom. In fact, I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom by myself until I turned 8. Surprisingly, it wasn't entirely my parents' fault. Before my birth, they had another child, Jacob, whom they loved deeply, more than I ever sensed as a child. Sadly, they experienced a heart-wrenching event when Jacob, just 9 years old, went missing one day. He simply vanished, and after 7 months of searching, they reluctantly gave up. A year later, they welcomed me into the world. Since Jacob's body was never found, a lingering hope persisted within them that he might still be alive. Although I never met Jacob, I always felt an inexplicable connection to him. Even as a toddler, my parents would recount moments when I seemingly spoke to someone in the corner of the closet. When asked, I would nonchalantly mention, Big Brother. It's worth noting that I was younger than 3 during these occurrences, and my parents hadn't shared Jacob's story with me at that point. It's as if he was a silent presence in my life, possibly an unconscious response to growing up with overly protective parents. The first vivid memory of Jacob speaking to me dates back to when I was 5, engrossed in coloring a picture in the playroom. Jacob's voice interrupted my solitude. "What are you drawing?" he inquired, playfully tugging on my braids, a habit he apparently had. "It's a forest with fairies, a rainbow, and a baby deer," I proudly responded, showcasing my artwork. He scoffed, dismissing my depiction. "That doesn't even look like a real forest. To draw nature, you gotta be in nature. Come with me." He grabbed my wrist with his cold, icy hand and practically pulled me outside, placing a small shovel in my hands. Instructing me to dig, I unearthed the usual assortment of bugs, rocks, and roots. However, buried beneath the soil, I discovered a backpack, once red and now weathered. Despite its weight and the promise of something inside, the rusted zipper thwarted my attempts to open it. "That's all right," Jacob shrugged. "We'll get it later." Just as my mother's panicked voice called my name, Jacob vanished. I protested that I wasn't alone, but when I looked back, he was gone, leaving only a sense of mysterious connection in his wake. My mom pulled me back inside, grasping the collar of my dress, and instructed me to stay in my room. "Do not leave here. You mustn't go outside like that. Stay safe." My bedroom never appealed to me. Even as a child, something about it felt off. A lingering sense of unease and a peculiar negative energy always accompanied me, making me feel never entirely alone. The closet, in particular, was a source of dread. Whenever I changed clothes, I would shut my eyes, fumbling around until I found something to wear. It didn't matter if it was unattractive, I just wanted to escape the closet's oppressive atmosphere as quickly as possible. Suddenly, Jacob materialized behind me, causing me to startle. His gaze followed mine, directed at the closet. "You're scared of that thing, huh, little sis?" he inquired, and I nodded nervously. He glanced at me and then back at the closet. "Sometimes, you need to face your fears." He slowly approached the closet, opening it swiftly. Gesturing for me to come closer, I, trusting my big brother, cautiously moved towards him. "Go in." I shut my eyes, stepped in, and to my surprise, he closed the door behind me, leaving me alone in the frightening darkness of the closet. I called out for him, but there was no response. Curled into a ball, I cried into my knees, overwhelmed by a sense of dread and loneliness. The oppressive silence filled the closet, not the tranquil kind but the bone-chilling kind that made me feel as if someone else were in there with me, watching. To comfort myself, I tapped on the closet walls. One section sounded different, as if it were hollow. I always dreaded that corner, it felt like the scariest part. Eventually, my mom called me down for dinner, and I mustered the courage to open the door. Jacob was nowhere to be found. The room was empty. That night, my parents warned me never to speak about Jacob again. That directive silenced me for a while. I have hazy memories until I turned 8. I don't recall if this was the first time I spoke to him since the closet incident, but it was undoubtedly the most significant. This time, he guided me to Dad's work computer, showing me enjoyable games to play. However, after a while, he urged me to stop playing and start Googling things, a concept unfamiliar to my sheltered upbringing. He instructed me to Google, Jacob Holden. "That's you," I remarked. I clicked on the first article that I found. Jacob Holden, aged 9, disappeared from his Colorado home on March 12, 2003. He vanished without a trace, leaving only his school backpack missing from his room. Despite efforts by authorities to contact his parents, Jennifer and Carl Holden, they remain unreachable. No one witnessed him leaving the house, and he was not spotted by anyone after leaving school. "School backpack?" I exclaimed, "like the one we discovered together?" Without a word, he handed me the old, rusted backpack. Then, he passed me a pair of scissors. "Cut it open, Lily. Please." I complied, and inside the backpack I had unearthed years ago, I found everything. Jacob Holden, passport. Jacob Holden, birth certificate. Every identifying document was in that bag. But why was it buried in our backyard? I began connecting the dots. Mom and Dad rarely allowed me outside alone. The backpack, with all its contents, was buried in our backyard. Mom and Dad seemingly never cooperated with the police, despite claiming to have searched for months. Jacob was never seen leaving the house. The hollow wall in my closet. I suppose Jacob realized that I knew what was happening because he presented me with something. A large sledgehammer. "Go to your closet, Lily. You know what to do." With tears in my eyes, I took the sledgehammer from him and rushed to my closet. Trembling, I stood before the door that harbored my deepest fear for so long, now knowing that it was true all along. I located the hollow corner and unleashed the sledgehammer on it. One thing they don't mention about deceased bodies is that if they're confined in an airtight space, such as a wall, they don't really decompose. Instead, they dry up, akin to meat in a dry aging fridge. Jacob's official cause of death was starvation. He was alive when they sealed him in there. I never saw Mom and Dad again. The police took me to live with my aunt. Jacob was also absent from my sight. I missed him. The last time I saw him, I was in the back of a police car, en route to a foster home until they could locate a relative willing to take me in. Glancing back at my house through the window, I saw Jacob. He stared at me, expressionless. He waved goodbye, and I returned the gesture with a smile. Maybe he couldn't leave that place, but he made sure I could. He was one incredible big brother, after all.
Hope you enjoyed. See if this next one's to your liking. Here's an excerpt.
My stomach churned. Exiting the station, a concrete staircase led into a lengthy, dirty, dimly lit underground tunnel, and the true reason for Darren and my tradition emerged. Because neither of us liked the idea of me walking home alone. As my calls went unanswered, I stood there, my leg nervously bouncing up and down. Lampposts flickered on beyond the iron fence surrounding the station, and the sky darkened until, finally, I felt compelled to set off as swiftly as possible. Inside the underpass, sputtering halogen bulbs were spaced out every 10 meters. I half-walked, half-jogged from one flickering pool of light to the next, inhaling through my mouth to avoid the combined odor of countless relieved bladders.
Keep sending your stories, and I'll keep uploading them. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated. Peace.